When we go to graph, we're going to have an open circle at 5, a closed circle at 10, and everything in between. Now, let's refresh our memory on how to put this in interval notation. Interval notation is far left to far right. And when the number is not included, we use a parenthesis. So 5 to 10, and the 10 is included, so we use a bracket. We're going to subtract 8 on both sides. Negative 12 and a negative 8 is a negative 20. 32 minus 8 is 24. Then divide by 4. So that's negative 5 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 6. So to graph it, and close circle at 6 and everything in between. To put it in interval notation, it's a bracket, negative 5 to 6, close the bracket. Example 2a, we have two inequalities formed by the word or. K plus 6 is less than 4, or 3k minus 4 greater than or equal to 14. By the way, let me back up for just a minute. This inequality, when we have two, that's a combined inequality. This, in other words, this is an and. You could have written this problem out with saying negative 12 is less than 4x plus 8, and do the middle again, 4x plus 8 is less than or equal to 32. And solved each inequality separately. Let me do that real quick. You get negative 20 is less than or equal to 4x, which is negative 5 is less than or equal to x. Here, add or subtract 8. So when you split it up like this, and sometimes you might see it literally split like this with the word and, then you have to go and put it in a combined inequality where you put x in the middle, less than signs on both sides, put the smaller number on the left, negative 5, and the larger number on the right. And, oh, that should be a 6. And so you get the same thing. Okay, so it could be given to you like this, with the word and, or it could be given to you in a combined inequality. Okay, sorry. Let's go back to this problem. Now, this one is an or. We cannot put it in a combined. It's an or means or. You're going to have one answer or the other. And means both answers, but or means only one or the other. So we're going to solve each one. So we're going to subtract 6 and get k is less than negative 10. Over on the right side, divide by 3. K is greater than or equal to. Now the book leaves it as an improper fraction. I don't know why, because to graph an improper fraction, to know where this where 14/3 is, what do you have to do? You have to turn it into a mixed number. Okay? What is 3? 3 goes into 14 how many times? 4 times with what left over? 2. So it's 4 2/3. So you need to turn it into a mixed number if you're graphing. If we're solving for x or k and not graphing, then you're fine with leaving it as an improper fraction. But if it's an improper fraction and you have to graph, you need to turn it into a mixed number. Okay, now, and this is an or. So let's plot this. So we have negative 10 and we have 4 2/3. I'm going to count by twos. 2, 4, 6. It's an open circle at negative 10, and k is less than negative 10, so that goes to the left. And then closed circle at 4 2/3. Well, where is 4 2/3? This is where the 5 would be, because 5 is right between the 4 and the 6. So is it to the left of 5 or to the right of 5? to the left. And it's just barely, it's about right here. Oh. And k is greater than or equal to, so it's a closed circle, and it goes to the right. Now, in interval notation, remember interval notation is from left to right. So what is the far left? Let's just look at this graph. Let's just look at that graph. That is negative infinity to negative 10. Bracket or parentheses? Parentheses. Now we have the other graph, this graph. That starts at 4/3, and it's a bracket 4 2/3 to infinity. And what are we going to do with these two interval notations? We put a U to say union with. Okay, so it's two graphs, but they're combined, you're union. Now here's a prime example. On the very first one, we divided by 5, and we got x is greater than or equal to 3. But on the second one, we had to divide by a negative 3, so we had to flip the symbol. So it becomes less than or equal to negative 7. So to graph it, I am going to count by odds. 1, 3, 5, negative 1. Closed circle at 3, and it goes to the right. Closed circle at negative 7, and it goes to the left. So interval notation would be negative infinity to negative 7, bracket, union with 3 to positive infinity. Does everyone agree with that? All right, we talked about absolute value equations in last night's homework. Today we are going to talk about absolute value inequalities. Now let's just refresh our memory. When we had an absolute value of x is equal to 3, that x was positive. We take it out of the absolute value to put it to a positive, and, not or, put it to a negative 3. Okay, basically it's the same operation with a less than symbol or a greater than symbol. However, when you have a less than symbol, you are going to use the word and. When you have a greater than, and this is less than or equal to. When you have a greater than or equal to, you're going to use the word or. For an and, the graph will come in together like this. For an or, the graphs will go in opposite directions. So let's look at example 3a. This is a less than 3. So what word are we going to use? And. Now, we could set it up like this. X is less than 3. Use the word and x. And when you go to put it to the negative, you always flip the symbol. Okay, always flip it when you put it to the negative. Now remember what I was talking about a minute ago. When we have the word and, we have to go one step further and put it in a combined inequality where we put x in the middle. What signs go on each side? Less than signs. Less than signs go on each side when we put x in the middle. Always less than signs. Put the smaller number on the left, which is negative 3. Larger number on the right. Look right here. It's right here. It's pointing to negative 3. It is, when you go to put it here, it's still pointing to negative 3. So you didn't change the problem. Or what you could do is automatically set it up this way, which is much easier. Take it out of the absolute value, put it in the middle, put less than signs on both sides, put the negative on the left and the larger number on the right. And then go to graph it. Open circle at negative 3, open circle at positive 3, and everything in between. Now, how would we put this in an interval notation? Negative 3 to positive 3 with parentheses, because parentheses mean they're not included. Now, when you have an absolute value is greater than 5, now what word goes with greater? Or. So we take it out of the absolute value, x is greater than 5, or take it out of the absolute value. When we go to put it to the negative, what do we do with the symbol? We flip it. Always flip when we go to put it to the negative. Now, this is already solved, so there was no solving involved. So let's go ahead and graph it. Open circle at 5, and it goes to the right. Open circle at -5, and it goes to the left. To put it in interval notation, negative infinity to -5, union with 5 to positive infinity. Absolute value of x is less than -3. What numbers are less than -3? All negative numbers, right? What numbers are less than -3? All negative numbers. Can an absolute value equal a negative number? No. So, when you have a problem like this, it is no solution. Now, when we have an absolute value is greater to a negative number, which numbers are greater than -2? All positive. So the exact opposite. It is all real numbers. And I'm okay with writing an R with 2 lines in the R. If interval notation would be negative infinity to positive infinity. But I am fine with you writing the big capital R because that stands for all real numbers. So basically you have to kind of think about that. What's less than -2 or -3? All negative numbers. An absolute value cannot equal a negative number. What's greater than -2? All positive numbers. So it's the exact opposite.
Why is it missing?
Yeah.
First, look at the inequality symbol. Is it a greater than or a less than? Well, it's greater than or equal to. So what word goes with the greater than or equal to? Nope.
Or. No.
What is this symbol? Great or, spell it with an O-R. Or, great or. What is this symbol? Less than, spell it with the and. Less than, and. That's how you can remember. Okay? Because that is something you will have to memorize. So which word goes with this inequality? An or. So we take it out of the absolute value. Use the word or. Make sure you have to include that word. Then take it out of the absolute value as is. When we go to put it to the -13, what do we do with the inequality symbol? We flip it and put it to a -13. Now we have 2 inequalities we have to solve. And by the way, or always goes, the graph go in opposite directions, correct? So when we go to graph, if it's not going in opposite direction, we know we've done something wrong. So let's solve it. Then we're going to solve the other equation, the other side. -8/6 reduces down to what? -1 2/6, which is -1 1/3, right? Because 6 goes into 8, 2 left over, 2 6, it's 1/3. Okay, now we're ready to graph it. Close circle at 3, and it goes to the right. Close circle at -1 1/3 is about right here. And it goes to the left. Interval notation would be negative infinity to -1 1/3. Bracket. Union with bracket 3 to positive infinity. Absolute value of 5x plus 2 is less than or equal to 17. This is a less than symbol. So what word comes with that? And. Now, there's two different ways we could do it. We could take it out of the absolute value, use the word and make two separate equations, or we can automatically put it in a combined inequality, which I think is much easier. We take it out of the absolute value, but we put it in the middle. What signs do we put on each side? Less than signs. They're always less than signs. And in this case, they're less than or equal to signs. Put the negative on the far left, it's negative 17, and put the positive on the far right. Does everybody understand how we set that up? Now solve, we're going to subtract 2 from itself, the far right, and the far left. Divide by 5. Negative 19 over 5, I've got to turn that into a mixed number. That's negative 3 4/5 is less than equal to, x is less than equal to 3. How many of you think when you get a fraction for an answer you've done something wrong? I do too, but guys, this is Algebra 2. We're going to get fractions. Okay, negative 3 4/5 is, here's 4, so and negative 3 4/5 is really close to it, and positive 3 and everything in between. Interval notation, negative 3 4/5, comma 3. There'll be a bracket. Amanda is apartment hunting in a specific area. She discovers that the average monthly rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is $600 a month. Plus, the actual price could differ from the average as much as $225 a month. Now, remember, we talked about absolute value equations in a couple sections ago, and the formula was absolute value of x minus the c, which stood for the central value, is equal to, but in this case it'll be less than or equal to the R, the rate. So, example A, write an absolute value inequality to describe this situation. What is about the central value of the apartment for rent? $600. So it'd be x minus 600, and that give or take, so it could be, it's between, 600 is between, so less than or equal to stands for the between, it's meaning it could give or take how much money? $225. Okay, so that's how we would set that up. Now, solve the inequality. This is a what? An and or an or? It's an and. So we take it out of the absolute value, put it in the middle, put less than signs on each side, negative 225 on the left, positive 225 on the right. So we're going to add 600 to both sides. Well, on the other side, I'd have to subtract 600 minus 225. So what does this mean? That apartment, you can find an apartment for rent from anywhere between $375 and $825. So the average cost of an apartment is around $600. I wish. Rachel is considering colleges to attend, and it determines that the average tuition among her choices is $3,725 per year. But the tuition could differ by as much as $1,650 from the average. Write and solve an absolute value inequality to find the range of tuition. So we've got the tuition minus, what is the central? $37.25, and it could differ by how much? $16.50. Okay, anytime when they're talking about difference of tuition, any difference of anything, it's always a less than symbol, less than or less than or equal to. Did y'all agree with that? Okay, and then to solve it, we would take it out, put less than signs on both sides, in this case less than or equal to, negative 1650 on the left, positive 1650 on the right. So this is saying that college tuition is going to range anywhere between $2,075 to $5,375, depending on where you go. When you're given a graph, you have to come up with the absolute value inequality. Well, look at the very first one. They're going in opposite directions. What word goes with opposite directions? Or what inequality goes? A greater than sign or a less than sign? A greater than. And is it closed circle? Yes. So you know it's going to have absolute value is greater than or equal to. You know that much, correct? Now, what you do is you find what's right smack in the middle of the graphs. So I like to find out what's in the middle. I go from -4 to 6, and I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What's half of 10? 5. So there's 5 on each side, so we can find the center. So what's the center? 1 is the center. That's the center point. Okay, do y'all understand that, how I found the center? Between the two graphs, between the two ends. Now, when I go to put it's always x minus. The absolute value is always x minus the center point. So, x minus a positive 1. So it's x minus 1. And then how many places you had to move from the center to the far right or to the far left. It'll be the exact same, which we've already determined that. How many places was that? 5. How could we check to make sure this is right? Solve it and see if you get the graph. Okay, let's look at example B. This is a combined inequality that comes in together. What word goes with this? And. What symbol? Less than. Now, is it going to be a less than or equal to or less than? It's an open circle. So I know right away it's going to look like that. So it's always x minus the center. So we got to figure out the center. And notice we're counting by 2's here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. What's half of 12? 6. So 2, 4, 6. So the 4 is the center. Do y'all agree with that? So it's always x minus the center, so x minus 4. And then how many places did we have to go to each direction? 6. In example C, what is the middle? -1, right? So that's x. It's always x minus the center. So what's x minus a -1? +1. And this is a greater than. And how many places do we have to move from the center to get to the end? In either direction. 2 places. So did y'all get that? Good. And then example D, now notice we're counting by 2's, but what's the center? 5. 5 is the center. Does everyone agree? And it's an and, so it's x minus 5. Absolute value of x minus 5 is less than, it's a closed circle. How many places did we have to move? 3.